Okay, hello and welcome to this special session of the Edgewood City Schools Board of Education. This is a special work session, and tonight is February the 7th, 2024, and the time is 6 p.m. Mrs. Bauer, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Messerschmidt.
Here.
Mr. Andrew Pressler.
Here.
Mrs. Ashcraft. Present. Mr. Gabbard.
Here.
Mr. Michael Pressler.
Here. Please rise with me as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Second item of business tonight is to look for approval of the agenda. I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. So moved. Mr. Gary Gabbard, can I get a second? Second. Mr. Andrew Pressler. Mrs. Bauer, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Gabbard.
Yes.
Mr. Andrew Pressler.
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt.
Yes.
Mrs. Ashcraft.
Yes.
Mr. Michael Pressler.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Third item of business tonight is presentations. Mrs. Spivey, would you mind leading us through that?
I'd be happy to. So tonight we've asked Mr. Scott Fussnecker, Director of our Curriculum Department, and Mr. John Caesar, who is the Administrator of our Virtual Academy, to join us this evening. Upon recommendation from our last board meeting, I know the board was interested in learning more about if moving the Virtual Academy to the current building that's the Early Childhood Center, would it be a potential cost savings? Or is it the best thing to do for kids? But just to have that open, transparent conversation. So you'll have this evening, John's going to lead our discussion. He's put together a nice presentation in regard to just where we've been with our virtual academy, number of students we've served, successes around graduation, and what is it that the board would like to see as other outcomes from this program, and to have a healthy conversation around that. And so, John, I'd like to invite you up, and I know Scott's here as well to pitch in where needed. Thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having us. Passed out some folders that have actual copies of this presentation. We do have a couple of extra left. Not many people usually come to see me speak, so I wasn't expecting too many. So,
You want to use this one? I can.
No, I can go right off
All
of here. So, well, my name is John Caesar. I'm the Virtual Academy Coordinator for Edgewood City Schools. Just wanted to briefly kind of give you a little bit of a background of the Virtual Academy before we start planning for possible expansion or any future planning. I think it's important to know where we were when we started this. We were in our 7th or 8th year, I believe. So our mission statement, this is something that we created in our first year, create a unique student-centered innovative learning environment that addresses the students' needs of each specific student so they can be successful in and out of the classroom. I read this to our kids every start of the school year, and at the end of it, I put it plain and simple. We want to get you guys a diploma because we believe that that's going to open up every possible door for you. So while that sounds really, really nice and neat and everything like that, we really want to get these kids a diploma because that's going to keep all the doors open for them, whatever path they may choose after high school. So, have to understand where we began. So this is just, want to go through some numbers to kind of show you how much our program has grown and some of the successes that we have seen. So our first year was in 2017 and 2018. We started the year with 12 students. We spent the month of July and August driving around our district, knocking on doors with transcripts saying, hey, you're so close to graduating, you're credit deficient, but we can still get you in. And that first day of school, we started with 12 students. We actually finished that school year with a total of 98 students in grades 7 through 12. So we had originally started as just a high school only program, but realized that there was some needs for our middle school students, so we served a couple of those middle school students as well. Our staff included one teacher and one instructional aide. We had a part-time counselor that we shared with the high school, and then we had myself as the administrator. So we have a couple of different learning options in the virtual academy. So we have an in-school session where kids can actually come into the high school, work on a modified day and week, and then we have an at-home session where students work from home and then have the instructor reach out to them, or in 2017, 2018, we are actually having the students come into the school one day a week to take their test, also to get any kind of assistance that they might need. So that number started really low. As you can see, we were at 6. The number of identified students that were on IEPs was 13. Another portion of our program was E-Lab, which is a credit recovery class, which students go and they work on an online class. 1 bell out of their school day, out of their 7-bell day, they would come in and work 1 bell. We had a total of 140 students. The last point there, 93% graduation rate. Really proud of that, because the program that we went to model this after, I talked to their coordinator the summer before we started, and he told us that we would be lucky to get 50% of our kids to graduate. We had 29 out of 31 of our students graduate, so we were really proud of that. But I don't tell you that to say what a great job the teachers did, or myself, or anything like that. The kids do all of the work. We provide them with the opportunity. We talk to them about why it's important. We guide and assist any way that we can, but the kids put forth all of the work. So, we really want to applaud them for doing all of the things that they do. So that was our first year, and then if you can kind of compare the second year, just a couple of things that stand out. We started the year with 86 students instead of 12 the year before. We saw obviously the enrollment increase, but the needs also increased too. We had more credit deficient students. We also saw some more anxiety in students. So there was a lot of things that contributed to that increase in enrollment. As you go on down the line, the other one that I'd like to point out is the number of at-home students. We went from 6 to 29, and that number honestly is too high. Our at-home option is a good option. It is not our best option. We firmly believe the best place for kids is to be here in school, but we also understand that that's not for everybody. But we just can't give the same amount of attention to an at-home student as we can as an in-person student. The 91% graduation rate, we had our number of seniors rise from 31 to 58. That was still a really good number for us. Our goal always is to be at 94. So still a good number. The 5 students that don't graduate, I will say the biggest issue that we have is attendance. So the students that aren't seniors that aren't graduating, we don't see them as much as we need to walking through our doors. So attendance plays a major factor in the graduation rates there. Looking at year 3 and 4, this is kind of see the end of 2020, start with the COVID shutdown, and then we see the start of the next school year when we were working through all the quarantines and contact tracing and everything like that. So the other thing that we did add this school year is we added an intervention specialist. So we had one intervention specialist that was assigned. Her name is Mrs. Wortley. She was assigned to the virtual academy to strictly work with kids that were identified. So as you can see, we had 18 students that were identified that required some specially designed instruction. And then as you can kind of go through there, we also had an increase in our number of seniors, still kept the 91% graduation rate. But as you can start to see here, a little bit of a trend, the number of seniors that we are getting has become increasingly more, as along with our total enrollment. Start of the 2020-21 school year, this is us coming back from COVID. So we had a lot of students that did not want any part of coming back into the buildings, understandably so. We started the year with 126 students, finished with 153. The other number that I would like to show is the number of at-home students. So we had 104 students that chose to work from home during that school year. And we still had the same staff, one teacher, one aide, and intervention specialist. And then we were also doing remote electives. So students that were just taking their electives online, we were also responsible for grading those students' work as well. I think there was 238. I don't remember the exact number on that one. So as you can see, the other big number I'd like to show there is our number of seniors. So we had 107 seniors. I think we graduated 312 that year. So we had about a third of the senior class in the virtual academy. So again, did some really good work, but you can also see our graduation rate dropped a little bit as well. Years 5 and 6, again, kind of all of the same things here. So what we really tried to do in the 21-22 school year is kind of get back to where we were at the start and really kind of put a restriction on the number of at-home students. We required some medical documentation. But one of the things that I don't like to do in this position is paint ourselves into a corner, because there's always an outlier somewhere. Somebody needs to work from home that may not have the medical documentation or whatever it may be, and we don't like turning kids away or anything like that. So, you know, we set the goal at number of at-home students at 20, you know, for this year, not 2021, but there's always outliers there. So you can look through all that. I won't read through everything, but just, you know, we still had a significant high number of seniors. In 2023, we got that number down a little bit because kids were starting to come back to school a little bit more and doing a little bit more in the traditional setting. And this is our current school year. You know, started the year with 66 kids. That's pretty typical. We currently have 98. We'll probably finish somewhere around 115 is what I would guess. We are down an aide this school year, part of the reduction in staff. We lost our instructional aide, but we still have our part-time counselor, the administrator, I'm still the administrator, and then we're working on our graduation rate. Obviously, we still have some work to do in that regard. So, kind of the breakdown of the numbers, the main reasoning behind the increase, there's just been an increase in the student needs, the family needs, our district needs. You know, the top 3 needs that we serve are credit deficient students. We have some behavior students, and then we have our mental health students, that's been an increase all across the country, and we're no different anywhere here with our increase in those numbers. Other needs that we serve, you know, the medical issues, that's a big one. The one I like to put on here is family support. We have a number of students that have to work to help support their families. So working or coming to school for a 7-8 hour day just is not in the cards for them. So they'll come and they'll work with us on that modified day, and then they actually go to work and help support the family. We typically get about 3 or 4 families a year that are dealing with that. So, any questions before I continue on? I don't want to overtalk here.
So my question is you talked about there's really three main reasons why you see kids that come to the virtual academy. One was credit deficiency, but the other two were behavioral and mental health. Just in your opinion, and if you don't have an answer, I understand that, but just in your opinion, is it good to keep them in the high school, or would it be beneficial to have them in a smaller, less crowded situation?
I think it would be beneficial to absolutely have that. I think those two students learn differently, and I think some are, like a better way to put it, they have different reasons that they are wanting to graduate. So we have to teach them a little differently. So I do think that if you have a student that is very anxious about coming to school, them working with a smaller group, more individualized instruction, we can provide some different services there. If we have students that, just to be honest, we've had students that have been in trouble with the law outside of school. And when they come, we have different conversations with them of why this is important and what they can do with this diploma that they're working towards and things like that. So when everybody's all together, that can be kind of a challenge. Now, in terms of the actual whole climate of the entire building, I think you would probably get a large portion that say, yeah, that would be better for students like that, being in a different location.
So so just so I understand these numbers, so you're talking about there's at home and then there's 7th and 8th graders, but obviously you're at the high school. So on any given day, like say for example, today, how many students do you have actually in your classrooms throughout the course of a day?
In our morning session, we had 33 students in there this morning. In our afternoon session, we had 17. And then our E-Lab, those class sizes range anywhere from 15 to 25 every bell. So, you know, the kids that are working on the modified days, we're at capacity in both sessions. So we get 40. In theory, we could have 40 students come to us because we have 40 computers. Now, if we needed to get some more, we obviously could, but that's where we're at.
Okay, thank you.
I got a question about this year, the graduation rate, 29%. That's a big drop compared to. Is that just because of where we stand right now? I mean, that'll obviously go up.
Yeah, that's where we stand. So we've actually had 12 kids that have graduated early.
Oh.
If you want to look at the glass half full on that, but we have those other students that are still working towards graduation. We have a couple that are getting ready to graduate. So unfortunately, we have some seniors that like to drive me crazy and they'll drag some of this out a little bit, and they need to be moving a little bit faster. They kind of slow down a little bit. So that's part of our job, is to kind of push them along a little bit, and hopefully they're not waiting until May 17th is graduation. We graduated kids May 16th before, so I mean, it just, sometimes they're just a little bit more of a challenge to get to the finish line than others.
So the 33 and 17 that you talked about in the morning I think those were the numbers in the morning session and the afternoon. Are they in your classroom 100% of the day? They don't go anywhere else?
Correct. So they, our morning session runs 7:25 to 9:55. Our afternoon session runs 11:55 to 2:25. And we're located in this hallway down here. It's a school within a school. So we tell them their universe is the restroom and our classroom. And we don't go to lunch, we don't go to breakfast, we don't change classes, we don't do any of that. They are strictly in our room 160.
Is staffing what keeps you at an afternoon and a morning session, or could you do it all at the same time?
We've actually talked about doing it all at the same time, just as a response to the increase in our at-home students. So if we took all of our students and put them in one session, we would take that afternoon session, say, and that would be dedicated strictly to our at-home students, meeting with them through Zoom, whatever it may be, home visits, whatever. It would still be a challenge because, I mean, you're talking about, what is that, about 35, 40, no, 33 plus 17, or nothing like that. But adding all those students together, they're all working on 5 classes. So one teacher grading all of those classes, that would be a challenge. You got 50 students doing 5 classes.
Sometimes the content becomes a little challenging.
And then they're all in different areas too, so it's not everybody's working on 10th grade English. You might have a 10th grader, you might have a 9th grader, senior English, all of those different things. So it's doable, but it would be very challenging.
So here's another question you might not have data for, but so you talk about your at-home students, and it sounds like most of those are medical reasons, but I know that just in recent, since we had our tragedy back in December, we've had several community engagement events, and there were quite a few students who chose homeschool because of different things that go on in the district. Would the virtual academy be something that could potentially bring those kids back to Edgewood in a virtual scenario? Is that something that you could support? And is there even a curriculum for that?
So right now, our at-home students work on the same curriculum as our in-school students. We work on a learning software called Edminum. They do have the option to come in at any time that they want. From what I've seen of our students that are in the virtual academy, we have students that use it for the right reasons. I have to try to sift through these students that I just don't want to come to school, and then they don't do what they're supposed to do from the at-home option. So I think the virtual academy can help those students, but the way that we're talking about the students that you're talking about that are, kind of afraid to come to school, the way that we're set up right now, I don't know if that's the best thing for them, because they're still coming into school, even though we are kind of isolated here. We just have a wide range of students that all have different needs. So, for example, we have a student that she was doing the in-school session, really anxious, really tried it. And then we have a student that's in there for some different needs, behavior needs, and that's not a good mix, those two sitting in the same room with each other. So she actually asked if she could work from home. She doesn't have medical documentation, but that's why I don't paint myself into the corner. I'm trying to do right by the kids. So.
It's easier to hold them accountable, obviously, with the adult in the classroom supervisor.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
And it's easier to keep them accountable when you're in front of them, instructing them, checking up, walking around the room. When they're at home, I mean, honestly, they could say they're at home working, they could be at home sleeping, but they're logged into their computer and it's showing time, they're laying down on the couch. So at home option for a responsible student or conscientious student, let me maybe put it that way, you feel more comfortable with that. And the students that typically find a home in the virtual academy are high need students, and sometimes you got to be with them to try to keep them motivated. It's really a catch-22. If that's a hard question to answer, it's like a balance.
So one of my roles is I'm also the attendance officer, and our biggest challenge with attendance is our at-home students. And we're in our 7th year, and we are in our 7th different plan for at-home attendance. We've gone from need to be logged in at certain times, you need to be logged in for 3 hours, you need to complete a certain amount of sport activities in order to be considered in attendance. This year we have a daily Zoom meeting with all of the at-home students, and then we also require them to complete 8 sport activities. That has helped, but they don't always log into their daily Zoom meetings. So,
Do we provide them with the computers and things that they need, or is that they required to have that on their own?
we tell them that they need to have their own computer, internet. Now, if they do not have it, the district has been great. We've worked with those students, so we've we average about 2 or 3 computers a year that we distribute out to them through our technology department.
One of the numbers that quite honestly caught me by surprise, and I forget what year it was, but you had 2020 and 2021 school year, we had 107 seniors. That's roughly a third of a graduating class, depending on the year that you look at it. I was shocked.
It's COVID, right?
COVID.
That was the year.
I'm still
coming back.
surprised that number is that high. I mean, some of the other numbers are pretty, 19 and 20 is pretty high. There's quite a few. Some of these numbers are a lot higher than I thought. And then I thought I saw the projection for next year was like roughly 80 students.
For
Virtual academy.
For virtual
for next
classes.
year, yeah, we'll probably start the year off with about 80, and then it'll increase to around 115.
So, I guess the question I would ask, looking at like for next year, for example, what you anticipate having, if this was to go an expansion and move it over to 7 Mile, roughly how many students would you anticipate that would be 100% in person attending that building on a daily basis?
Well, actually going to get into that here in a little
Okay,
bit,
well,
but I'm basing our future planning on about 120 students. And then I'm also, again, kind of going in perfect world. I'd like to see us look at our at-home option and maybe turn that into like a home instruction model where you sign up for it and teachers actually meet with the students one-on-one, separate location, or maybe after school hours or something like that. Because the at-home option, it's great. One of our best students in the virtual academy was an at-home student. He did it right, and he had a very strong support system at home. But our at-home option, the kids are learning more for credit instead of more for knowledge. And so what that does is they still come in and they take those state tests. And they're not scoring very well on those state tests just because they are learning it from a computer. They don't get all the additional assistance that we provide here at school. There's more in the weeds of the at-home option than there are that we're just showing here tonight.
So I know you want to move on to opportunities of expansion, but one last question, and are other districts in Butler County doing what we're doing right now? I mean, I know some have programs, but do other districts do the type of work that we're doing at Edgewood in a virtual academy, credit recovery, and so forth?
Not nearly as good.
My husband teaches one. At the next school.
Hamilton has the Miami school. Lakota has their version of this. Fairfield has their own academy. Monroe has their own as well.
Now, what no one has is the therapeutic model, which I know they would buy seats for. If we really had social workers that could help with the counseling piece on site in a blended model, they would pay for that. But because nobody does it because they can't afford it.
Okay. Thank you.
So we just talked about breakdown numbers and just the different needs that we're seeing. So the opportunities for the expansion, this is something that we talk about every year. The virtual academy staff, high school administration, central office staff, we talk about it all the time. So there is a need, and I think there's an opportunity for us to expand this. The behaviors, the mental health, credit deficiencies, family needs, credentialing, the graduation requirements are forever changing. They've all become more complicated, and it's very difficult for a traditional school to keep up with all of this, with all of the other things that are going on a day-to-day basis. So, honestly, we have this opportunity, and we can make it look like whatever we want. It really just depends on what we want and what resources we want to put into it. So wanted to look at some possibilities here. I did add some graduation requirements. When students come to the virtual academy, we run a credit check and transcript, and we compare it to what these are right here. Where are they at credit-wise? Where they are at with their state test? Have they met competency? Have they earned their seals? So there's a lot that goes into when a student enrolls with us. So we'll have, I credit our guidance counselor, Ms. Cottingham, with all of this. She does all of our credit checks. She's outstanding. The other counselors chip in as well. But we'll get kids that have been to 4 different schools in 3 years, that have been in 2 different states, and you got to try to figure out what the state requirement was in that state and what the Ohio is, and does this transfer over? There's a lot that goes on, and usually, schools are really good about giving us the transcripts, but some schools, they hold on to them because they owe fees or whatever, so we have to try to finagle our way around all of this. So I just wanted to put that on there to show you this is what we look at when we get a student, and that doesn't include any of the non-academic reasons that they might be with us. So, whether it's mental health or there's behavior, social anxiety, whatever it may be. We created a alternate pathway to graduation for kids that do not meet the required test scores. Traditionally, the Virtual Academy students do not test very well. And again, it kind of goes back to they are learning for credit and not so much knowledge. You get a student that is a senior that comes to us with 5 credits and needs 21 within their senior year. That student's just really trying to earn their credit and move on. And I wish I would tell you something different, but that wouldn't be true. So we had to create this because a lot of our students did not meet that criteria. So we get them a FEMA credential, which is First Emergency Response System. Our trainer, Joe Downey, certifies them in CPR and Stop the Bleed. And then we do a Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal, which basically teaches them employment skills, being punctual, being honest, trustworthy, those types of things. And then that serves as a safety net for students that don't meet their testing requirements for graduation. Okay, now we'll get into the possible models here. Kind of divided these up into, Ms. Spivey likes to talk about the Cadillac model a lot, so we went with the Cadillac version. I've never really been in a Cadillac, but I've heard they're nice, so I kind of just went off of what I think would be in one. So, Cadillac overview for the Virtual Academy. This is top of the line, fully loaded, everything that we would want to do, and potentially could add more with more suggestions. But we would provide services for students grades 7 through 12. We have seen a need. Every year we talk about middle school students should not be in our virtual academy. There's an age gap there, and quite honestly, putting a 7th grader just on a computer for 2 hours and saying, hey, have at it, that's just not good. So we say it every year, no middle school students, no middle school students, but there's always outliers that come up. So we have, and every year, we service about 3 to 5 middle school students for various reasons. Some of them are anxiety, some of them are behavior, some of them are medical conditions, whatever it may be. What I would like to see is for those middle school students, we work on a blended learning model where they would do some of the work on the computer, and then they would also get direct instruction from an actual teacher. Still work on a modified day, week, however we want to do that, but they would get more direct instruction while they're also working online.
And you're actually saying these kids would if this was at 7 Mile, these kids would not be at the middle school, they would be at 7 Mile.
They would be at 7 Mile, yes. Yes. High school students would be placed according to their needs. We'd still work on that modified day or week. The at-home option, like I said, I'd like to see that kind of go to more of a home instruction model. We would work hard to identify these students how do I put this, the spring before the school year. So if we were moving next year into 7 Mile, what we would do is we would work with the middle school and high school administration, counselors, everything, and identify students that possibly have needs to do the virtual academy offsite. And we would identify them, we would go meet with their families, talk about what this program is going to be, have intake meetings with them, and try to get them started before the school year starts. After that, what we would do is have a select number of seats assigned to both the high school and middle school, to where, I'm just making up numbers now, say they each have 10 seats available. If they wanted to use a seat for whatever reasons they can come up with, sure, you have this amount of seats, they'd have a seat to use. We would do SEL curriculum offered as an elective credit, and that would be really big for our high school students, because elective credits, that's just one of the things that we have some electives that we can use, but we could always broaden our course study there. So, and also work study credit, which I think, regardless of what decisions that we make here this year or for next year, whatever, I'd like to see all virtual academy students get work study credit. I'd actually like to see all high school students get work study credit, but that's another conversation. So this is kind of the overview of it. The location would be at the 7 Mile campus, EECC campus. We would do grades 7 through 12. I put separated IRN number. A lot of the decision making that we do with the virtual academy is going to depend on if we want to do a separate IRN number. If we do a separate IRN number, by law, we are required to staff the buildings a certain way. And I'll kind of get into that here in a minute. So we wouldn't be able to just, if we had a separate IRN number, we wouldn't just be able to put a teacher and an administrator out there and say, oh, that's our virtual academy building. There's laws that say that we have to have secretary, a school nurse, student resource officer. I don't know all of them in and out, but I've talked to other schools, and that's what they have talked about. Some benefits. Research shows that all the alternative schools are most effective when they are ran off-site. It improves the culture and climate of the other buildings. It provides an alternative placement for students that are their expulsions have been held in abeyance. The reality of the situation, and I just had this conversation with my sister over the weekend. She talks about expelling kids, and I said, expelling kids is not what it used to be. Okay, you don't expel kids and then they never come back. They didn't go to some different world or anything like that. They come back, and we're required to still educate them. We can expel them up to a certain amount of days, but then at the end of those days, they can come back, and they come back credit deficient. They might come back with some behaviors. I don't know. So this would provide a placement for that.
Mr. Caesar, can I stop you for a minute?
Yep.
So are you saying right now, if their expulsion is held in abeyance, they can't come to virtual academy at all?
No, we do. I'm saying if their expulsion is held in abeyance right now, they do come back to the virtual academy because they're coming back into this building.
Okay.
So what this would do is they would come back to a different building, if that makes sense.
Okay. Thank you.
The other thing that you would see is you would see an improvement in your test scores, your graduation rates, attendance, discipline. Again, our students don't score very well on these tests, so we would still get an overall grade as a district on the state report card, but you will be able to see that high school and middle school, those test scores, traditionally when I'm talking to other districts, all those scores have gone up. So those are just some of the benefits that come along with it.
So you're talking about the test scores, graduation rates, attendance for the actual high school, not for Virtual Academy.
Correct.
That doesn't do anything to help them.
It
Correct.
could, but,
It would probably help them in more ways than what shows on the state report card, because once you separate that IRN, it's getting a school grade as well now. And as he just said, they typically don't score well. We've got alternate pathways and all that. So on paper, on a state report card, that Virtual Academy might not look so hot. But when you dig deeper into the stories of how a staff member can rescue a kid and get them a diploma to set them on a pathway for life, those are the stories we celebrate in a Virtual Academy. But it also allows for our regular campus that isn't Virtual Academy to probably raise their numbers in those categories that you're seeing right there.
So we talked about back in the fall, we got our state report card, and I think we were 2.5 stars, and we were 3. But the only schools that were below us in Butler County were New Miami and Middletown. Everybody else had a better score than us. If I remember correctly, 7 Mile was a 1 star or 1.5 star school, and that was largely because attendance for kindergartners.
It was, yeah.
So this is fairly hypothetical, but if we would we expect that our state scorecard would have been higher if we had a Virtual Academy at 7 Mile, like what Mr. Caesar is describing, and we had our kindergartners either mixed in at EIS or Baybeck, where there were other opportunities to raise those scores? Would it be reasonable to expect that the overall score of the district would be higher than what we saw last year?
Kindergarten would be in with a larger population.
Which should help.
It would be reasonable to say yes. Yes. Reasonably, yes. We probably would have had a higher score. I could go back and decipher it all. That attendance rate, you got to keep in mind, is a formula that's called chronic absenteeism. Their attendance rate at Baybeck, I think, was 89%. It wasn't 42. 42% was the state's definition of chronic absenteeism, which weights the students who miss at least 10% of the year, weighted against all the students who didn't miss 10% of the year. Their chronic absenteeism rate, according to the state's formula, was 42%. Their attendance last year was like 89%. That was their real attendance rate of all kids. So that's a bit confusing. That's why I didn't like that they just stuck that out there like that when you have a building in one grade. But Mr. Messerschmidt, you are correct to say when you don't isolate one group, it doesn't. You can afford to have a couple hiccups and it doesn't affect you as much.
And where are they right now that they're
They have improved
monitoring
greatly.
that?
I just went with Mr. Baybeck, Mr. Banks at, which by the way, his office was great. It was right out in the middle of the hallway. It didn't have anywhere to work, so we just made a work table right there in the middle of the hallway. I think he had kids in his office, but he was at 42% with those chronically absent kids last year on the report card, and right now he's at 25%. So we've been working really hard to make phone calls, send letters home, have conferences. Mr. Caesar has attendance meetings as our attendance officer. So every group has improved so far. I think our middle school was at 26%. They're sitting at 18%. Our high school was at 40%. They're sitting at 30%. So they're all getting better. That's the good news. As the year goes on, this gets worse because kids keep missing school. But I anticipate all 5 of those attendance percentages being better at the end of the year to some degree.
So with the Virtual Academy, this Cadillac plan, he has separated IRN. If for some reason we decided not to go separated IRN, would they still have the same IRN as Edgewood High School, and that this is just an expansion of?
Correct.
Yeah, I think you have 2 community. You want to take over?
Sure.
So, Mr. Caesar's correct that his kids typically do not perform well on the state assessments. And really, when we pull out the data, when we take the Virtual Academy students out of our testing data, we put a 5 to 15% jump in test scores.
How much?
5 to 15%.
That is very significant. 15% is very significant.
Usually 5% is pretty
5% is
significant.
something to
That's pretty
celebrate.
significant,
15% is.
You have 2 more comments over here.
Well, Mark, you know where I'm going with this. You're talking about the importance of having mixed grades. I think the more important thing to do is look at what's properly for our elementary school students and put them back where they belong. So put those kindergartners back with those first, second, third, fourth, and fifth graders, if we're looking at solely on attendance.
And I think that's what I'm hoping that's where we're going, right? Is
But-
have some more discussion.
No, you're talking wrong, because if you shut down one elementary school, you are shoving kids into a school that's too small. So once again, I feel that we are ignoring the bigger picture here. It's not about a building. I don't know how I can stress that with you guys. This is not about a building. This is about the equity of our little kids. Our little kids currently have no work-life balance because they're on buses for an hour and a half to and from school. They are not showing up, not because it's because they're sick. They're exposed to new germs in kindergarten that they've never been to. I would like to show you pictures of mine from Friday of his new illness that he came home with. It's frustrating to sit here as a parent of elementary school kids and just keep thinking, it's okay, you know, we can have specials in the classroom and interventions in the hallway as long as the high school gets to have every AP class known to man. If you don't have a strong foundation, your house falls apart. We're not treating our elementary school kids with equity. That's all I'm asking.
Okay.
You have one more.
So, one of the things that you said was 7 Mile, and this is my layman's terms, is bringing down the state report card because of their attendance and this, that, with the other. Historically, 7 Mile, when it was K-5, carried this district because they were a school of excellence. They did well on the state report card. So when there was K-5, it was good. You move them, and then it goes down. So historically, 7 Mile carried the district in that respect.
And just for full transparency, you know where I stood on the redistricting, and I still
Yes,
feel
I do.
the same way.
And
but-
I'm here tonight because I know where everyone stands on it, and as the mayor of 7 Mile, I don't want an empty building in our village. So when Mark came to me, and I appreciate that very much, and he was very open and talked to me about it, I just don't want an empty building. Obviously, we want K-5 back in 7 Mile. I think that side of the district, and because they're all separated, this side, that side, I think they all want K-5. For obvious reasons, back in that building, but when Mark came to me with this idea, because I told Mark, you can't fight City Hall, because all of you, when Fussnecker and I forget the other guy's name, decided, oh, let's redistrict, let's move everything, we're gonna build a new school over here, let's move everybody back to Trenton. That's who decided to do that, and everybody went with it. Now, not all of you were on the board at that time, but that's what happened. And then the election came, we thought, okay, here we are. We're still this way. It doesn't go back to the way it was, and I don't understand it. So, Patty, there's a $600,000 deficit. Is that what you're saying because of 7 Mile?
No, what we're saying is that, so in our November forecast, and we know these numbers are gonna change, they change all the time, but the last 5-year forecast that we did showed next school year in a $600,000 deficit. That number still holds true, but it could change as property taxes and all that's changing. The one thing though that we do know is consistent.
Did we spend what we predicted to spend?
In every model that we run from year to year, the dollar amount that we spend and the dollar amount that we bring in, they change drastically. We spend more than we bring in, and at some point we are going to be back in a deficit. As I mentioned to you, and for full transparency for everybody that's here, the reason we're having this discussion is since 2019, next year is predicted to be the smallest class we've had in the last 5 years, down to 3,600 students, which is roughly 10% of the district has vanished for different reasons. So we're getting to the point where the school is getting smaller, and we don't know if we really need all the seats that we have. And as I mentioned to you, if we don't start looking at options and we don't start thinking about things now, we're going to find ourselves at some point with such a small head count that we don't need all the buildings. We're not going to have the money, and we're not going to have something like the Virtual Academy established in 7 Mile. And then we will be presented with a situation where we've ran out of money and we've ran out of time, and now we have an empty building that's sitting in the middle of 7 Mile.
Let me finish.
So So the idea is to, what we're up here tonight to do, and not to go back and revisit the redistricting thing, but what we're up here to do tonight is to talk about, are we doing the right thing for kids? And I know there may be some differences of opinion, but so far everything that I've heard sounds like we're doing the right things for the virtual academy if we pursue this. There will be discussion about if it's the right thing for the smaller kids as well. And are we doing the right thing with the tax dollars that the taxpayers have entrusted us to represent them on? And right now, it sounds like there may be some opportunities for some savings, and that's what we need to have the conversation on. So this isn't about saving a building. This is about what's doing the right thing for the district with the resources that we have. I personally, I can tell you right now, it will be a very hard day for me if we ever have to shut down 7 Mile, because I'm from there. That's where I live, and I do not want to drive past an abandoned building. But if we don't put something in place very soon and we run out of time and we ran out of money, it's very likely you could have an abandoned building in the middle of 7 Mile.
Well, I would hope that this board would do something with that abandoned building and not leave a small community to deteriorate because of the blight, because it's gonna turn into blight, and then all the property values are gonna go down, and then the school district will get less money in the end.
So
And
there's-
I don't know that you'll ever pass another levy fee.
Well, I was gonna bring that up. So I know that when we were trying to pass a levy, I thought there was a good chance that the school was gonna get shut down because I didn't know where we were gonna be at if the levy failed. And so when I was talking to people, I was saying, hey, there's a good chance that, and I didn't know, but I thought there was a good chance that 7 Mile was gonna get closed down, tore down, if we didn't pass a levy. It still failed tremendously on the west side of town. It's still, everybody voted it down. So that, to me, that
You know why?
I took that as like, well, hold on, let me finish. And then you can talk.
Historically,
Let me
the
finish.
west side of the district.
But I took that as in, they don't care if they have a school out there. You know, so because why would you vote no for a levy if you thought you were gonna lose the school because of
I
it?
tried to meet with you to talk about it.
And so my thing is like when I was out talking to people, because probably everybody in here knows me. I'm involved in the community every single day. I got kids in the district. And when talking to people, and I told them like, hey, there's a chance that we might have to shut down 7 Mile if we don't pass a levy. You know what they said? Why would you wait until a levy failed? If you could save
There
money,
may have been a few.
if you
who
could
said
save
that to
money,
you, but I
why
don't
would
think
you?
it won't
And
save
look,
you.
I never once did I sit there and want to shut down a school, but to sit here and come in closed-minded when our job is to do what's best for the district, and we're gonna turn over every stone. We're gonna look at everything when it comes to what is best for this district, and we're not gonna make everybody happy. And I'm not saying that we'll even do any of this. I'm not saying that we might come across something else, but our job as a board is to look at everything.
What I said when I spoke was, yes, everybody would like to see it go back to K-5. However, I think everybody would like to see it be a school. If this board does not seem to want to bring K-5 back, then this is the best opportunity that we have as a community for that school to stay a school and stay open. That's what I was saying in this. Yes, everybody wants it to come back K-5, but we also don't want an empty, vacant, abandoned.
And Missy, to be honest with you, I think the biggest mistake we can make as a board is to get to the point where we have to close 7 Mile, because if we close 7 Mile, I don't believe that we'll have the money to tear it down. And if we close 7 Mile and the district grows back to 4,000 students, which it was real close 5 years ago, we won't have the room with the buildings we have right now.
You won't be able to open 7 Mile back up. The health department, the EPA, if you close that kitchen, if you close 7 Mile down, even the kitchen for a year, you have to go through all the EPA and bring it to current code.
And we understand
You
that.
can't do it because of the septic. So if you close it, it's gone.
And we understand it, and we're not saying that we're closing it, we're saying we're repurposing it as
But
a
even
different
if you close
school.
that kitchen down for a year,
And we'll look into all that.
you have to make sure you do, because this is a big deal.
And we understand we're taking this very serious. So we understand it, and this isn't, I don't want to revisit the redistricting thing. I want to keep this on track. 'Cause
Yeah,
this is
I'm
really,
sorry. I just had to go back. When they said that about the scores, I had to go back to that because that is a factor in why the scores are lower. So I just had to go back to that to address it.
I will say, Mr. Messerschmidt, on this year's report card, 7 Mile and Daybet are not reflected at it on all. It's the early childhood center and all of the district's kindergartners. It is the primary building and all of the first and second graders. Baybeck and 7 Mile are not reflected on our report card at all. When you said 7 Mile, I was assuming you were asking me if the early childhood center that is in 7 Mile was with other kids, would that impact our scores? That answer is yes. But if you're asking me about 7 Mile, that building's not on the report card.
But
Now, it used to be high achieving, and I agree, and it was a jewel of a school when it came to test scores. I don't deny that, but it's not on this year's report card. So the question you asked me about this year, it's not on there. It's our kindergartners that are housed in the city of 7 Mile.
And it's
Or the
not
village.
because of 7 Mile, it's because we have one grade level
Correct.
that's being pulled out to evaluate attendance. The other buildings have more than one grade
Correct.
level. so
And that's what I was saying. That's what
Yes.
I was saying.
I
I was
got it.
saying the attendance of the kindergartners
Yes.
in the early childhood center in
Yes.
7 Mile. That was my question.
Gotcha. Cool.
I'm sorry.
No, you're okay. I just want to make sure, like, I use the term 7 Mile Bayback all the time. It's like, right, that's just what we use. And I knew what you were asking, but it's really our kindergartners that are housed over there. And if we did blend them together, they would have less attribution together.
You got more categories to assess.
Sure.
You've got
100%.
more-
You can stub your toe a little bit
students.
because you
And
got
more
more
students.
numbers. Yeah.
Not talking about redistricting, I just have a great point to put out here. We're sitting here listening to one of your ideas about how to cost save. Have we asked the teachers? Have we asked the community to come in with their ideas? Or we're just gonna go forward with your 5 ideas? I know we elect you, but shouldn't we listen to the community if we're looking at cost saving ideas that perhaps we should
Every day.
actually?
Every day.
Andrew?
Every day.
First of all,
Every
what you
day.
said, I want to talk
Every
about
day
the
talking
levy.
to
The comment
teachers.
that you made about the levy, what was on there was nothing to do with closing the school. It was about busing, it was about athletic fees. We had a big, pull the rug out from underneath you and say, you know, we're not switching the busing, we're gonna still get it to the high school, we're just gonna make everybody ride the bus longer now. And we switched on what it was. That's what, I probably still have a picture of what was mailed to me about what was on the table. That was not what was taken away. There was never a conversation about the building. Maybe you had conversations about the building, but that was not put out in the public.
So my concern, Molly, to be fully transparent, is if we get to, so what I'm hoping that we can have conversation about is to make 7 Mile either cost neutral or to make it a revenue stream for the district. And that's why this idea is attractive, is if we can make it where it doesn't cost us a dime to have it, or we actually can make money off of it by offering seats to other districts. 7 Mile will never be a topic of a levy ever again. My concern is that if we have to come to the voters in 12 to 18 months and say this levy is going on the ballot, if it doesn't pass, we're going to be forced to shut 7 Mile down. I'm convinced, and you won't change my mind, that levy will fail miserably, because I don't think the people in Trenton will vote for a levy to save a school in 7 Mile. I just don't believe that will happen. So the intent here is to let's make 7 Mile cost neutral. It costs us nothing to have it. We make money off of it. It serves the district well, and we have the option that we can move back into it at a different time if we need to. And that's why we're having this discussion here tonight.
I hope you open up the listening conversations with teachers who have good ideas as well.
Every day.
So, John, if you would please, I'm sorry.
So, kind of getting into the cost of, or actually the needs of what option A would look like. This kind of goes along with the separate IRN numbers, what's required. We would have to have a full-time secretary, full-time admin, 1 full-time counselor, your custodians, your school nurse, your SROs, and then you get into the teaching staff needs to service the kids like we were talking about before. So there's 2 middle school teachers that would allow us to do that blended learning model where they're getting some direct instruction and then some on the computer as well. Then we do 3 high school teachers, and depending on the numbers, we can divide those students up according to those big 3 needs that we were talking about before: credit, behavior, mental health. And then we would have 1 intervention specialist assisting with the academic goals for all of our students. In terms of cost saving and revenue making, this is actually kind of new territory for me in terms of generating some revenue. I have to talk to other boards, other admin superintendents, get their thoughts about would they be willing to pay for seats in our virtual academy if we in fact start looking at these models. We do have open enrollment, so we do have some open enrolled students that join our virtual academy. I'd have to really dig deep into figuring out exactly how many we've had over the 7 years. But those are discussions that we would need to have and before we make any decisions here. Just some numbers that were generated here. So this is what we're looking at as cost in the red. And then just basing it off of 10 open enrolled students over a 5-year, we would generate about $400,000. So bringing our estimated expenses over 5 years to 3.8. This includes, obviously we have myself and we have 1 teacher right now. So we would just be adding the 5 office staff, 5 teachers. That's how we came up with these numbers here.
So was the staffing based on 1 per 20
Yes.
students?
Yes.
Okay.
And then we move on to the minivan model, which is the next step down. Really, some changes here. We would just be offering services grades 9 through 12. This would just be a high school program. Still looking at all the other same things here. The 2 things that I did add in blue, we developed that ninth grade transition program. So we would meet with the middle school admin, counselors, teachers to identify students that could benefit from this. So that would be something that we would add in this model. In terms of location, we could be looking at the EECC building, or we could look at possible other buildings. Some of the districts, I know Mason actually used to rent out a space. I don't know what they do now, but they rented out a space in town somewhere. Other schools look into that. Again, we'll be looking at grades 9 through 12. We would have that same IRN number, so we would still fall under the high school IRN number. And again, this is based off about 120 students. There's some potential to create some type of 9th grade transition program. Like I said, I think that is a benefit, and to help our at-risk, academic at-risk behavior, social and emotional with our freshmen and sophomores, because it is a big jump. I have a freshman that's doing it now. It is a big jump to come from the middle school to the high school. So I think anything that we can do to kind of help that transition and make it smoother, I think that's something that we should be looking at. Again, it's still going to improve the culture and climate of the buildings, provides an alternative placement, and then talk about cost saving and the revenue generating. Looking at the staff needs, in red is what we would be taking out. May have just part-time custodian, traveling nurse, traveling SRO, but the teaching staff is where we would really see the reduction. We would no longer have that intervention specialist, and then the 2 middle school teachers, obviously, since we're not servicing middle school students, we wouldn't have the middle school teachers in that building. So there's kind of the estimated costs that you see. So when you do reduction in staff for the school nurse, SRO, custodians, you can see what we're generating there. And then again, the spacing that off of about 10 open enrolled students over 5 years. You're looking at a difference of about $1 million between the two models there. And the final option, I chose the 87 Accord because that was my first car, but did not look nearly as good as that one. This model would provide services to grades 10 through 12, so now we're taking away the freshmen or the middle school students. Again, that is ideally what we would like to have, but I'm not painting ourselves into a corner here. But the students would work on a modified week. Everything else is the same except minus the red there. We would not offer any SEL curriculum. They would just take the electives that we have on our admin courses. No ninth grade transition program. And then the original case managers would stay with the students that are identified on IEPs. So the location would be at Edgewood High School. We were basically doing what we are doing now here with this model. Same RIRN. And again, it provides an alternative placement for students, but they are still coming back to the high school. And here's kind of what you're looking at in terms of the needs. I did put this for 2 high school teachers because I do think just the increase in the enrollment that we've had in the virtual academy, I think we are at the point where we do need another teacher to kind of help us service all of the kids that we are getting. Still have a full-time admin, but everything else we would be taking away here.
So like with these costs that are associated here, so like the admin, the teacher, the online license, those are all costs that we're paying now, right? So really until we get to, I mean, there's really, I guess until you get to the Cadillac plan, doesn't look like there's any additional cost.
Well, there is in the minivan, isn't there? Because we would take in grades 7, 8, and 9.
Okay, so
So it'd be more teachers and more office staff.
So the minivan would only be 9 through 12.
9 through 12 would be the minivan.
Oh, sorry.
yeah, so 9 through, so basically 9 through 12, we've got the SRO, we've got an SRO that we're paying for now, a nurse
That we're paying for
that
now.
we're paying for, so really,
And we have 3 custodians there, which we would have to look at depending on what square footage we are actually using.
so estimated cost over 5 years, you've got it as 2.4 million, but that's
That's not new money.
That's not new money, that's money
Correct.
we're already spending, so that's, so this right here, this minivan option that you've put out, it's basically what we're doing right now. So any cost that came out of 7 Mile would be additional money that we could use for other things, correct?
Right.
If we move pre-K and kindergarten somewhere else.
So you said the Accord model is basically what we're doing now. Why are we cutting out 3 grades from what we're doing now? Because this says 10 through 12.
We are not. We currently have some middle school students. We have freshmen, we have sophomores. I put that on there just because I don't think it's the best place for our middle school students with the model that we have right now.
It wasn't designed for
It wasn't
grades 7
designed,
through, it was just 10 through 12.
Yeah.
But we always make some exceptions depending on individualized needs and what happens at expulsion hearings and that type of thing.
So how many 7th and 8th graders do we have right now?
Currently, we have 2. We average about 5 a year. We have 1 7th and 1 8th right now.
Middle school says ideally there could be 10 to 20 if there was availability.
Okay, I got a couple things here. You guys got a second here?
Yes, sir.
To be appealing, we would have to obviously do the Cadillac. The
You want to do something different.
puts us in the red when you start looking at the numbers that I'm looking at.
Well, I don't think it's necessary, oh yeah, it would, I guess, yeah, you're right.
So it costs us more than we're spending right now.
Correct. Yeah, it puts us in the red of what we're spending currently. So I don't know how we could be a draw for somebody to come buy a seat here if we don't do the Cadillac. Nobody's gonna wanna come here. You know, either of your other options, in my opinion. I mean, I'm just gonna give you my opinion of it.
Well, they currently get that in their buildings now. I mean, just about I forgot, Talawan's doing it too. Just all of our neighboring districts
Everybody
are doing
does
the technology.
Right, so we would have to be a school of choice to draw anybody in to generate any money. But other than the Cadillac, you're not gonna bring anybody in, because they're probably getting the same services that they're getting.
The only thing that we would, those 10 open enrolled students that we're talking about, we get that typically. We'll get open enrolled students from Middletown, Monroe, got one coming.
That's actually one of my next questions. How many open enrolled students do you have this year in the virtual academy?
This is just a strict guess. I don't know the exact number on that, but it's around 10.
Approximately 10 open enrolled?
10.
A little higher than I thought.
I'd have to dig a little deeper there into those numbers.
John, how many rooms are you currently using at the high school?
So we have our credit recovery room, Miss Wortley's room, and then our virtual academy rooms are 2.
The
Three
virtual
total?
academy room's like a double room though.
Yeah.
It's a real good size room.
It's the old art room, right?
Well, it's like the size of the 127 you guys go in sometimes, I think.
Yeah.
About like that, so.
So let's say 3.
Yeah.
So 3 total rooms?
Yeah.
So when you say selling seats, you don't mean open enrolled students, you mean actually selling seats to districts?
So the way I understood it is there was a thought that maybe some other school districts would want to purchase some seats from us. I agree with Mr. Gabbard. I don't think that is something that would actually happen. I can't see districts that were all in budget crises spending extra money to do something that they could do themselves. Talking about just our open enrollment current model that we have now, we do have people that call about our program. Hey, can I open enroll? And Ms. Bowers and I, not anymore now, she's doing the treasury, but we used to have conversations. We're past the date here, blah, 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 how does that work? So I do think there will be approximately about 10 open enrolled kids that would come join us every year. That would be a good guess.
My last question would be to Mrs. Spivey or you, Mr. Caesar. Do you know if any other district is using a different IRN number to do their virtual academies?
I know at one time, I don't know if it's currently happening today, Hamilton's done it for years.
Hamilton does it, and
Fairfield did when they had the Miami connections.
well, I didn't know Fairfield had the Miami connections, but Hamilton used to have that
Yeah,
connection too.
that's the only ones I know of.
Hamilton does it, and they are actually beneficiaries of those new test scores and everything like that. They made that jump, and they got great teachers over there and everything.
And I mean, obviously, Mr. Gagan said we would jump 5 to 15. I mean, 15% is phenomenal. I mean, if we jump in like the test scores, and any kind of percentage like that. So I was just wondering because I mean the IRN number is a little different, appealing to me. Now, do they have to actually be in a physical different building, or can we get a different IRN number and keep them right here in this building? No. All right. Thank you.
Do you know the breakdown right now of, so you said there's 3 main reasons why you have kids: mental health, behavior, and credit recovery, credit deficient. What's our breakdown right now? I mean,
that would be, again, kind of guessing here, but our highest would be credit deficient, and then I would say our mental health would be second, and then the behavior would be third.
A lot of them go together though, Ms. Ashcraft, like you're credit deficient because you're also experiencing some of these other issues that you're trying to deal with. So then all of a sudden, you might be in all 3 categories because one, you can't work out in your life or whatever. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So some of them kids are coming in, they're all 3.
But the way that we identify our kids, we start kind of go top down. We start with our 5th year seniors, kids that did not graduate the previous year, at risk seniors, credit deficient, then work our way down juniors, sophomores, freshmen. But mental health, all of those kind of rise whenever they come up. So we don't turn mental health students away because they're not a fifth-year senior or anything like that. So, and that has been an increase here over the last 3 or 4 years.
Yes, sir, you have a comment?
Yes, I had a question about the, you said you had 10 open enrollment students already, so we are already realizing the income from those open enrollment students then, so there would be no additional income.
That question's probably for somebody smarter than me.
If we just move the kids over, true, we'd have to get another 10.
In order to have.
If we increase it to
we'd have to
7,
make that
12,
be
we would
20.
anticipate more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
There's a much greater cost to 7 to 12.
More kids, more staff.
And can you tell us what SEL curriculum, I mean, as an elective, like what would that look like?
Currently, we have the second step curriculum that we use, grades K through 6. There are some other curriculums that are out there that can serve our high school students. I'm sorry, K through 8 is the second step curriculum. There are some other curriculums out there. Second step actually has a model that we could look at using.
You want to talk about just a few skills that it touches on, like
Yeah.
problem solving? And
So it talks responsible decision making, problem solving, self-awareness, self-management skills. Those are all types of things that are taught in these modules that are online that kids can take. And there's even some, and I need to look more into them, but there's actually some that are already on our current program, Ed Minimum, that we might be able to purchase at a smaller cost than what second step would cost.
But this is what you're talking about would make this the catalog really, would be we offer that versus all the other, I mean, because every district has credit deficient, credit recovery. So this is what we would offer to
Plus, we
improve.
could market all of the other additional resources that we have through Catalyst Counseling and Vision Partnerships, all of those other things that we currently have in the district at no cost.
I think one thing with this, and I was actually going to ask this question later on, is I don't think we could do this next year and shout out to Butler County and say, hey, we've got this great opportunity, send us your kids, and honestly expect that people are going to come. I think it would take several years for us to ever get to a point to show that what we're doing here is so good that other people want it, kind of like what you're saying, where people are attracted to come here. So I think if we seriously are going to pursue this, I think we need to have the goal that maybe we could grow to make it a school that pulls kids in from around the county. But I don't think we can just jump right into that. If we decide we want to go this direction, I don't think we can just jump into that. I think really what we probably need to look at is, with what we know, if we were going to do this as early as next year or the year after, I think we need to really try to take what we have and make it better and establish something in a remote location before we even honestly think about trying to expand it beyond what we already have. What would you agree with that? I mean, you guys are...
I think getting into some separate location would be a really good step for us to take, and then we could work our way up to the separate IRN number and what all that requires and everything like that. But right now, the virtual academy, we're doing some really, really good things. But it's just difficult because we are still here at the high school. Some kids are anxious about coming here, and this is the only option that we have. Our at-home option isn't that great. So I think if we could make any kind of step forward or take a step forward with it, getting it in a different location and adding at least one staff would be a great move. I mean, we have, this was a couple years ago, but I received a phone call from a Children's Hospital downtown, in the Clifton area, and it was one of the staff members there and said, "Hey, I'm calling for this patient of mine. We've heard about your virtual academy. They wanted me to give you a call. How do we apply?" And the student was from the Northwest local school district, so we're out there. People know about us, but I do agree with you. We're not going to be able to just do it that quickly.
One thing you said, we have some resources, obviously. You said at no cost. Is there any cost to Catalyst Counseling?
What it costs to the families, not to
Okay,
Yeah.
they're not billing us.
No, we pay costs for kids that are going to other programs for therapy.
Okay,
That's probably what you're thinking of.
okay, thank you.
And Gary, we obviously, like this year, we hired a counselor, we couldn't find one, so you probably remember seeing a cost come through for Catalyst because we acquired a staff member through them.
That's what I got.
That's what you're thinking.
That's what I said. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
No, I got a question. So if we were to do the, even the Cadillac version, and we had, we met all the minimum requirements for their, can we use like staff as support from, if we needed like, say virtually, if they needed to see a counselor, a therapist or whatever, we could still use them?
But
as long as we're meeting the minimum requirements on site, we could still utilize the rest of our district.
You can, but ideally, like you may not realize you're gonna need a counselor that day. You're gonna have a crisis that you don't plan for, and that's typically what happens. So you want somebody on site. You don't wanna have to go into a computer when someone's having a total meltdown. So if anything, it could work the opposite. Let them be with the kids that have the diagnosis and the needs, and then let the therapist move to another building. So that's not ideal, because you never know what's gonna be on your lesson plan for that day when you walk in your doors.
Mr. Pressler, were you asking what are the absolute minimal requirements staffing wise?
Well, I think it was listed.
The IRN?
Yeah, I think it was listed on here,
Right.
We need to do more research
I'm
on
not saying
that.
that's like best for
Yeah.
kids, but I think the point is, at least, let's see what ground zero would be. Can you
Because
have a remote counselor?
There's plenty of
Or does it
schools
have to
that do
be-
not have full-time nurses districts, so I think we need to do some more.
To see the minimum,
Research
to
on
get
that.
that number.
The reality, I've seen my doctor on a FaceTime call before,
Sure.
so I mean, I think that with technology, there's probably ways we could, maybe not all resources, but I think we could share resources between the high school and the virtual academy if they were at a remote location. And I think that's what we got, for this to even be remotely possible, we have to figure out ways to leverage technology. Mr. Caesar, I know you're dying to wrap this up. I'm sure you probably feel like you've been in the hot seat. for
I'd like to
hours.
sit down.
No, it's good. I'm just glad my wife didn't show up. She said she was gonna come. I'm glad she did.
She would have the most questions for you,
Oh,
wouldn't
wow.
she?
Well, I kind of find it interesting you don't have your partner with you, Mr. Harrison.
That's by design. I do want to compliment Jamie. He's been outstanding. He's been with us every step of the way in all of this, and he's been a huge part of the whole planning process and everything that we've done. It's been a team effort. So
Takes special people.
When we started
to
this
invest in these
academy,
it
programs.
takes a special person to deal with Jamie.
He said we had 12.
Right.
We didn't have anybody. We didn't have anybody in this academy, just a vision. Jamie and John went around and literally thought, man, I remember this kid who could have grabbed, and they went and found 12 kids. We didn't have anything.
That
And
would
these
not
two
have
guys
graduated.
Built it, yeah. They went and found them and brought them back and built this into all the stuff you saw here tonight.
So if you've been to any of these community engagement events or any of the things that we've had recently, we have a lot of mental health opportunities across the district. We've got a lot of behavioral opportunities. We've got a lot of opportunities with a lot of things. And I think that everything that I'm hearing from you, if I'm hearing it correctly, is that a lot of those opportunities could be addressed in something like this. And if I heard you correctly, that it would be better for those kids in those programs, and Doug, if I heard you correctly, it would be better for everybody else. And so I mean, One of the questions that I had for tonight, and I don't want to get too far ahead because we still have more discussion, is what we're doing now, is this the best thing for educating kids? And if I have heard everybody here tonight, I think we have opportunities to improve Edgewood High School, and I think we have opportunities to improve our virtual academy and even expand our virtual academy to meet increased mental health needs and all those kinds of things if we decided we wanted to pursue this. Molly's not here anymore, but to her point that she's made several times, is this the best thing for the smaller kids? And that's what we need to start having conversations around. And I do think, listening to, what John, you talked about when you laid out all the costs at the virtual academy with the minivan plan that you laid out, that's really no new money or very little new money. I don't know if any of us understand how much it would save if we moved all of the kids that are currently at 7 Mile to either Boozenbark or Baybeck, or however that shakes out, which, Alicia, I don't know if you've looked at that or if y'all have looked at that. I mean, is there room and how would that all work? The numbers I've seen in the past, I think with 3,600 kids next year, there's certainly plenty of room on Boozenbark and Baybeck to do that, but that's something that you guys would need to tell us. So are we using the resources that we have the right way? Because, Missy, as I've talked to you, at some point we're going to run out of money. And if we wait till we're out of money and out of time, we're out of options. And that's what we don't want to have. And, you talked about, the EPA, and if we, Ms. Yeager, you talked about the EPA, and if we take them out for 1 year, that it no longer is a school, and we have to bring it to code. I don't honestly think that our district's going to be 3,600 kids forever. I think at some point our district will be back up to 3,900 kids, and we're absolutely going to need every seat that we've got at 7 Mile. So when we talk about this, at least I'm not presenting it as an end all forever, never to go back to anything. I'm only presenting this as right now. What I do know is the numbers that were presented to me in November show that we're going into next year as a deficit. I personally feel like as a board member elected to represent this community, that any of us that vote for a budget going into next year that shows us in the red is irresponsible without making some significant cuts. I think we have to do something. I think we have to look at every available option. And I think this might be one way that we can save a little bit of money and show people that live in the community that we're doing absolutely the best that we can with the resources we have. The biggest feedback I got when that last levy was going onto the ballot is y'all need to learn how to live within your means. Y'all need to learn where to make cuts. Y'all need to learn how to better manage your money. And that's really what this whole discussion is tonight, is to try to be strategic and look at what the future of this district is going to look like. If we did this right now and we put a levy on the ballot, there's no new money. I mean, actually probably coming out of savings, I would imagine, when we figure what we saved by making the move of pre-K and kindergarten out of 7 Mile up into Baybeck or Boozenbark. I think there is a savings there. I don't know how much that is, but I think we can honestly tell the taxpayer we have done everything that we can do to save every dime that we can save. And 7 Mile is no longer a topic of conversation anytime it comes up on the ballot, because it's no new money. It doesn't cost us anything to have it there, and it gives us options if we ever need to go back to it. So I just kind of wanted to summarize, at least some of those things before we open this up into discussion, because I'm sure everybody up here has got a lot of questions and comments. And John, I appreciate what you've done here tonight. So I just give you one last opportunity. Anything you want to summarize before we start talking about it amongst the board?
No, I appreciate you guys letting us come talk about the program and where it is, and I appreciate you guys starting this program, because I was fortunate enough to do this in another district, and this is kind of my wheelhouse. So I really enjoy coming to work every day and working with these students and working with the staff that we have. So,
John, I think, we stay so busy in our day-to-day operations. I bet just looking at that 7-year profile, I hope you patted yourself on the back and everybody involved to look at the number of students that have been able to graduate from this individualized instruction. So kudos to you and your team.
Well, I appreciate that, but we tell the families in our intake meeting, if this works, it's 100% because the kids made it work, and if it doesn't, unfortunately, it's 100% because the kids didn't make it work. So, we really enjoy what we're doing, and we appreciate you guys taking time to listen to us.
Can we turn the light on? Is there a way to turn it?
Absolutely.
Let's turn it up.
Derek's going to help us, Mr. Steiner.
So, again, appreciate that. That takes us to the fourth item of business, which is discussion. I kind of broke the ice with, the two things I said. Is this the best way to educate the kids, and is this the best use of our resources? And I think that's just a good lead in to the rest of the board kind of asking their questions.
So I got something I'd like to say. So I know it was a little while back, Mr. Fussnecker did a presentation on our report card and our scores from it. And one of the things we asked him to do was get creative. Find a way to, because so many people said when we were trying to pass the levy, one of the things I heard from a lot of people is, if you want me to vote for a levy, then why don't you guys increase your report card, and have better scores, so, and we told Mr. Fussnecker, like, hey, let's get creative, let's find a way to increase our scores, because other districts do that. And one thing I do like about the Cadillac model is the, what was it called? IN number? IRN number. So with that increasing our scores and stuff, I think that's something that I think is definitely appealing.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of a change in plans. How about a request for about a 5-minute break so that everybody can use the restrooms and get something to drink. So it's 7:31. We'll resume the meeting back here at 7:37.
Oh, good. Who's 1 year ahead?
2 months ago. Was it all my 4 So that's my job, like that.
Wasn't sure that acronym meant. Yeah. I'm sure. There's a lot of partners that are doing seniors and graduating class. You have to cover. There's only like 250 in our graduating
Because they keep telling us that these kids are not together. They're not put together.
Okay, right. Yeah. Yeah, I can understand that. That is I see. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Right. And it sounds like it's very simple. You just gotta find a tire there's a lot of stuff you gotta figure out. Thanks.
be another district, but.
I didn't know the boys went to the bathroom together.
We're spending money going out is exceeding the money. If you look at the 5-year trajectory, it just continues to get wider. Yeah, so.
This is killing now, by the way, I haven't put numbers, so.
Yeah, that's, it goes as an estimate. It says estimate, yeah. Kelly Knapp is
I'll
right.
worry about people getting,
That's just a tiny little.
yeah.
It's not even, that's what it would be, right?
I don't want anybody to get hung up on.
Okay, the time is 7:36 and we have returned from a brief 5-minute restroom break, and we're going to resume back in discussion around possible virtual academy expansion to include potentially remote location, operating it from the current early childhood center in 7 Mile High. So just kind of going back, Andrew, you were talking about some things that you took away. Any other thoughts from the rest of the board, or Andrew, you got anything else you want to add? Amy, what do you think?
What do I think?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's 7:36 and you're not gonna like what I say. I think it's smoke and mirrors if we get the separate IRN number. We're not improving our test scores, we're just pulling kids out that pull us down. We're not improving their test scores. I mean, that's like they're throwaway kids, they don't matter, let's put them on a 7 mile and get them out of here. I don't like that. I don't like the possible reconfiguration that you have to have in order to put them at 7 mile. I think it's gonna cost a whole lot of money, and to do it right, and if you're gonna sell seats, the screening process to get these kids in is gonna have to be pretty tight, and I don't know that we're gonna accept anybody, because what we're gonna get are the kids that can't go anywhere else. And I don't know that we wanna bring them into our district, because, you know, people complain about the open enrollment and the court place kids now. You're gonna be selling seats to a kid who can't go anywhere else. And I think we're gonna bring in more problems than we're helping.
See, I kind of feel the same way in a sense that I feel like we're letting down the kids that, you know, Mr. Caesar was talking about, that they feel uncomfortable being able to come to this school, so they're being homeschooled. If we could get them in an environment where they felt comfortable coming to school, and we could save, you know, those couple of students that we can, I feel like that would be one reason to move in this direction, if it would help the academy in that regards. Because, I mean, these kids, I know I have family members that are in this program, and they're not bad kids. It's not like they're bad kids, and that's the biggest thing, is for people not to take it that way, because that's not the situation at all.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
These similar programs have existed since you were in school, but some of you were closer to my age. When you were in school, was OWA, OWE, work study. Those are the kids who were in this program.
Yeah.
You know, different title, different person, right? You know, those were Butler Tech employees, and it had a requirement that the student had to have a job. And then as we got fewer and fewer students who were willing to work or didn't have the transportation to work, they didn't qualify for OWA and OWE, so we went away from the Butler Tech program and developed our own program in Edgewood. But it's not a different clientele than the ones that you knew when you went to school.
I was actually going to come to you at the end. I wanted to kind of get some input from you from the ETA perspective after everybody appears to kind of talk. So just since you've got the floor. floor, just be kind of thinking about it, because I was gonna come back to you before I get Kelly and them involved. Michael, what do you think?
So I think the best resources that we're able to provide, it seems like we're able to provide everything that's needed here at Edgewood High School, right? The only thing is they're not isolated, they're not by themselves in a whole different building. By going to the other IRN number, I'm not gonna lie, I do find that appealing because it would boost our test scores. But I just don't think that we can justify moving everybody out there for what it's gonna cost us. I think we need to look at how much it's gonna, what it's gonna cost, but,
What cost are you worried about? Because I think with the minivan plan, I thought we pretty much established that there was no additional cost of what we're already spending.
but that also shows 10 through 12 versus right now we're able to offer 7 through 12, correct?
It does, but I do want to make the point again. Seventh and eighth grades do not typically do well in our program. Even ninth graders struggle. It's a different type of learning that they do. And it wasn't designed to be a 6-year program. So if you take a seventh grader that's in it, chances are that they're probably going to stay in it for the duration of their high school career as well too. So, but you're right, it's only a 10 through 12, but again, we also don't paint ourselves into any corners, because there's always an outlier somewhere.
But we won't be able to offer a counselor in that situation as well for the core version. We won't be able to offer a school resource officer. There's a lot of things that we won't be able to offer that they have here at Edgewood High School.
Well, we could offer those things, right? There's nothing that says that we can't.
There's currently an SRO at PECC. It'd be cost neutral for that
right. And
piece.
actually, I've had conversations with the chief.
It wouldn't be a savings. It's not a savings.
It's not a savings.
It's
We're already
what is the
spending that
purpose.
money.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And actually, there's possibly some interest that the 7 Mile Police Department might be interested in supporting us with an SRO in 7 Mile for next year. So that might be another opportunity to tie it back into the community.
So 7 Mile has full-time officers?
He
We
said
do not have a full-time police department, but we have one officer who is available to fill that position.
You currently don't have a full-time officer.
Currently, but we do not have a full-time officer. However, I just said we have an officer that could fill that position, which when you had a little trouble here with the Butler County Sheriff's Office, we had someone that was ready to go, but then the Butler County Sheriff's Department,
What trouble? When we lost our SRO, going into Christmas,
the holiday break.
we didn't know if we were going to have an SRO for the month of January, and 7 Mile was willing to provide an SRO to fill that 30-day window if we couldn't get somebody from the Sheriff's Department.
I wasn't aware that we've had a problem.
But we transitioned one officer to another over the holiday. We didn't know if we were going to have one. We came back at the first part of the year. So
basically we were just backup. Mark contacted, just in case that you guys were not stuck without one. He contacted us. We went through the motions, and then CSO came.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Okay.
I understand.
I want to make a point, if you don't mind, about the IRN. We do have to keep in mind, like the district graduation rate, that's always one rate. So you could have 3 high schools, there's still a district graduation rate. So that portion is not going to change, which we're always really in the 90s anyway. And that building will still show up on the report card. And I know what the scores are of students who are usually high need. They struggle a little bit. Like Mr. Caesar said, they're trying to knock out credits and they get caught in this frame of mind of, I got 6 months left, I got X amount of credits. Like, man, I am just trying to plow through. If I fail this quiz, I'm going to restart and re-listen to the lesson again. I'm going to restart. And they're just trying to get to that finish line, man, so they can get a job or do whatever it is they want to do. So that building will be on the report card. And it will not look anything like the high school grades of the report card. So
It still counts for the district.
yes, like the high school, I always say that the high school in a district is usually the flagship school. When you think of a district and you say whatever district, for some reason you kind of go to their high school. So yes, what we would call like the flagship school that puts out your varsity teams and your choirs and your choir leaders and all that, it will, their numbers will get better. But they're still going to be on the report card, whatever the name of that building is, Edgewood Virtual Academy, and it's going to get stars as well. And my guess is probably going to get a 1, max 2 star because they only go by test scores.
Even if it uses the same IRN.
Now, if it uses the
as-
same, it'll just be the same stuff we always are used to getting. Correct.
So we would go from 5 buildings to 4 buildings, and the high school would be a much larger population, which would
The high school kind of remained the same.
it'd basically
Yes,
be, but
yes.
you wouldn't have, so you wouldn't
Yeah.
have another 1-star school like you did.
Correct. I just want to prepare that if we separate it, it's not, there is one negative attribution if it does have a separate one. Those
You're
scores
trading a
will be
1
lower.
star for another 1 star.
Those scores are going to be a 1 or 2 star for the separate IRN. If we don't separate it, we just carry on with business as usual as far as the report cards. We just have our kids housed in 2 places now, and we just keep digging, right? So if that doesn't, if it's the same IRN, it doesn't matter if you're under 6 roofs. Still the same kids going to the same report card. If we separate it, it's a separate IRN. Yes, one building will get better, but that new IRN, that's going to be a 1 or 2 star.
I don't personally think I want to see a new IRN. I think
I'm good with either. I just wanted to make sure that it's not all like peaches and cream if we separate it, because one, it's going to go like that. You know what I mean? So, and I'm cool with either. Honestly, I'll just do whatever we're told to do in the best circumstances we can. But I just want to kind of make sure we know that there's an offset to the good scenario.
Obviously, I've got more questions than what I had before. And how many empty classrooms do we have in the high school right now? The high school was the last school built in this district. Edgewood was growing on population when we built this, so it was overbuilt. It was built as the numbers was growing. So how many empty rooms is in this building?
I have it off the top of my head, like
7 or 8.
I was going to say 8. What do you think, Mr. Gagan?
I think 7 or 8, and there's also ways to consolidate some rooms here or there with special ed teachers having their own room that's used part of the day.
7 to 8 rooms that aren't being used for anything.
Storage.
Correct.
Storage.
That is correct.
How many rooms are in 7 Mile?
Well, 15-ish.
But they only need 3. Maybe 4?
Potentially, that would all depend on the amount of staff that we have, because we could divide up the students many different ways as possible.
But if you pull them out of the high school now, you got 10 open rooms at the high school.
Exactly. So are we doing this? I mean, I've heard both sides. I've heard that some of us like the idea of doing another IRN number, which would bring our test scores up. Some people are not really in favor of that.
Well, I get exactly what, I figured it would be the way that you were saying, except for I thought because I know when we were looking at the graduation rate of our, last year when we were looking at it, we were sitting at like, I want to say like, was it 92 or 93?
91, 2 or 3 we usually sometimes get a 94, but yeah. It's usually
And
fluctuates.
I think 94 was, I mean, we were real close, like 94 brought you up into the new,
Yes.
and brought you up tremendously.
Yes.
And, I mean, it was literally just a couple students was the difference. And
Yeah, we do the math. I mean, when I first started working here, our classes were pushing 300 kids. So we always just had in our mind, 3 kids is a percent, right? Like if you put a kids aren't numbers, but every time you lose 3 kids, you're dropping 94 to 3. You lose 3 more, you're dropping to 92. So yeah, when you're talking 1, 2, 3 kids when it was as close, because you're right, it was real close to the 94, and that is the threshold that takes you to the top tier for graduation rate.
So, well, I have a question, I'm sorry, can I?
Go ahead.
So, if the virtual academy was moved to 7 Mile, these ELAB kids would not move, correct?
Correct.
So we still have to have rooms for them. Additional computers, correct? Because they can't use the computers that are out there. So have we, is that factored into this cost here?
Zach is not here, but typically a classroom has about a laptop cart full, so I don't know what Mr. Caesar has in there, but 2 laptop carts would probably go to 7 Mile. We have those in this district. We still have what I would call a mini surplus of our fleet because of the COVID money. We knew that we may never be able to get this level of technology again, so there are laptop carts. That would be the least of the concerns. We can get a cart.
But we still have to have a person in
Yes.
that room.
Yes.
We still have that room.
Yes.
And is that amount factored in here?
When we accounted for staff, the computers really don't need to be accounted for because we got them, but those numbers are in there staff-wise.
Yes.
Those
All right.
are ballpark.
All right. Let me finish real quick. How many empty rooms are in the intermediate school?
Well, there's a handful, but like right now we have intervention specialists that have a whole classroom that they use to pull students out. Some of those things can be adjusted, right? So current empty classrooms in the intermediate school.
Did you say middle school or intermediate school?
Intermediate.
Intermediate. Where is it? Probably 10.
Currently empty? The intermediate school?
There's completely empty, there's probably about 6 that you could,
But you've got people using rooms that don't necessarily need them.
well, you know.
To do a
yeah, may
small
not be a
pull-out
whole
group or
room
something.
yeah.
How about the middle school?
They're in the same situation. They've got intervention specialists that have a whole classroom. Currently, like totally empty open, there's 1, 2,
Just thinking 4.
3, 4.
4?
4 empty, yeah. And another 3 to 4 with intervention and things like that.
The 4 empty in one hallway.
So it sounds like we've got 20 to 25 empty classrooms.
And we've got 15 classrooms in 7 Mile. Are we doing this to bump our test scores up, or are we doing this to save money? That's where we're at.
Well, I mean, is it the right use of our resources? I mean, you've got more empty classrooms on Boozum Park than you're using at 7 Mile.
So if you kick these people out with intervention specialists and combine or whatever, consolidate, where would they meet with these kids if they do the pull-out, if we take that classroom from them?
Well, we would have to keep some rooms available for intervention and things. When I was in the high school, my intervention specialist was in my classroom with me. You know, that the model has changed a little bit at the high school. They've done some different things, with the special ed department, but there's different ways that you can do that. We wouldn't be able to take all of those rooms away.
My humble opinion, and this could vary from person to person here, is if I'm a gen ed teacher and I have an intervention specialist that works with me, I'd rather them have a group right in the back of the room so we can tag team in one space all day long with those 26 kids instead of pulling 3 out and now I'm left with the 24 to try to, it's the true definition of like team teaching, but that's, for me, I don't mind. The pull-out room's a luxury to a large degree, and they're great, and sometimes a kid does need quiet space, but I don't know if we need the level of pull-out rooms that we have. Would that be fair to say we could eliminate a few?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. My lens is definitely from the high school level. That's all I know from teaching, and that does work well at the high school level. It probably looks different when you're doing intervention with the younger students, so they may need a little bit more space to be available to them for interventions and things.
So So I think Gary's established the fact, we've got 20 to 25 open classrooms on Boozem Park. So has anybody looked to see empty classrooms on Boozem Park? Has anybody looked to see if 3,600 kids fit on Boozem Park and Baybeck? Has anybody done that?
We have that's why she has all that information in front of her. We have had some informal conversations. We would need to take it as far as to people that would be issuing licensure for preschool. Do we have adequate facility for that to go into another building, such as playground equipment, size of water fountains, toilets, sinks? I mean, this is going to take some time to get that information out. But yes, we have counted rooms. We know there's empty, and there's probably at least 2 different reconfigurations we could look at. But we're not ready to go there yet because.
Well, my last question. What's your recommendation?
Well, I'd like to know the purpose of this. Like, if you're just talking alternative school, research supports that a different location works best for these kids for the reasons you heard this evening. If you are talking to our kindergarten teachers, they feel isolated out there. They would love to work with other people. I'm not so sure, though, we've established the purpose. Is it for cost? Is it for education? I'm always going to err on the side of what's best for kids. Patty's going to correct me and say, well, that may cost too much, so you're going to have to back up a little bit. But I'm going to always err on what's best for kids. So I do agree that we need to do some more work, such as licensure, such as what is the configuration that we're recommending to the board. I have a community engagement meeting tomorrow night. I'd like to talk a little bit more with the community. I'd like to have formal surveys in regard to some things, but this isn't something that is as easy as it sounds. I'd like to take the time, know exactly what are we talking about with costs for licensure purposes, equipment purposes, move that into more of a formal conversation versus guesstimations and informal. So if you're saying you're interested, I'd like to bring experts in and start having those conversations, have exact dollars and cents, have some input from our staff and community, and get back to you on that. I'm always going to err on what's best for kids.
One last
So
question.
it depends. It's a domino effect. For alternative school, yes. Is it best for everybody else? I don't know. Our staff does feel a little isolated, but that doesn't mean they want to come over here. Not gotten to that. But go ahead.
Have you run numbers?
I have not run numbers.
Okay.
I have and I haven't. So the last couple weekends I've been going in, I've met with special ed this week, different people, and we're looking, how can we recode things? Can we use grant for this? That bus that we just voted on last month, I'm like, okay, now that makes a whole, but then we went back and we charged that to PI. So this goes on and on every day, and I've said to you last week, to Mark last week, I don't want people getting fixated on a $600,000 deficit. That changes every single day. We just talked about a boiler last week. That's $500,000 if that goes out. We just can't get fixated on that number. We work on this every day. We meet every day. Different people. Do you really need these supplies? Can we pull this money over here and use it for salaries? We do this every day. I mean, I eat, breathe, and sleep it. It is my goal to not deficit spend it this year, and if I can help it, we will not do it next year.
Do you think we're in a crisis mode that we need to make a real quick
I don't
decision
think
tonight?
no, I absolutely would not make that decision tonight.
Well, we can't make that decision tonight. It's not.
Well, I know, I'm just saying,
So-
to even go further into this
Well,
discussion.
So I was gonna ask that. That was one of the things I wanted to end the meeting with.
So, have you run numbers, what money we would save moving the virtual academy over there?
I have not run numbers on that, and I'm happy to do that even before the meeting on Monday and kind of give you a ballpark.
Fair enough.
Can I say something? So Kelly, I agree, like, sitting up here, I try to think about, I'm not sure which way exactly I want to go, but as far as, I do want to do what's best for the students, and then also what's most financially responsible as well. And I know everybody's not going to love this, but I mean, do we look into the possibility? It sounds like we don't even need that space. Do we shut it down, and do we just tear it down and move everybody over? What's our open enrolled numbers?
Around 100.
Oh, no, we have more than
120?
If you can give me just a couple minutes, so I can pull it.
Close. That number was a lot higher than that. I thought I saw close to 300.
We were at one point, when I did it a couple years ago, we were at 326,
We were at
and it is
220
going
last year. I
down.
don't know where we are this year.
Let me show you something else here real fast.
And you don't have to give me that right now, I
Oh,
just,
well, I pull it, but this is the way that my mind works, and this was just something I was looking at today. This is not, if you look here, back where we were in this is 2024, this is 2019, this is overall enrollment. If I look, I'm just trending, and like we had that year where we spiked, our enrollment has gone down consistently. I could go back further than that, and you're gonna see that it's gone down.
By how
That is
much
my
for the
concern.
audience? How much?
10%
About
in 4 years.
10% in 4 years. And obviously, we have empty classrooms.
And
We've lost a
that's-
class. We've lost an entire grade in 4 years.
That's my concern, because what happens if we don't grow? What if we continue to lose 20 kids every year? This year was astronomical. That has not happened before, where we lost 140 kids in a year. I can't say what happened this year. I'm just saying what happens if that continues year after year.
I just feel like we need to plan as if we're not gonna pass the levy. Like, it's not gonna happen, and I still wanna purchase curriculum, I still wanna do those things to give our kids the best education possible, and are we gonna put a building over our children's education? You know, so
Right.
that's basically what I'm getting at now is, you know, looking at this, I mean, I don't know, I just don't know what the best route to go is right now. I'd like to see all the numbers with everything, but, I mean,
So,
at what point do we maybe look at going ahead and just, you know, closing it down, tearing it down, you know, because I don't want to see an empty building out there. So, I mean, for sure, if we was to pull students out of it, and I'd want to tear it down.
I can pull your utility bills, any kind of maintenance, things like that, as long as it wasn't charged to the district. Now, that might have to take a little extra work. Just consider though, just because we have 10 kindergarten classrooms out there, bringing them into town, those teachers have to come with them. They're intervention specialists. So the savings is not on staff. It's the support staff maybe would be reduced, but
In the operating dollars.
yeah, I'm just
utilities.
thinking, yeah, 80% or more of our budget being staff. Just realize that that is coming if you bring that over here. So while we can save $40,000 to operate the water and the electric or whatnot, there's not a whole lot. We can eliminate mowing.
SRO probably, because you already have one in your
Yeah.
facilities, probably secretary,
Nurse,
Secretary,
administrator.
administrator.
Maybe not. If you're putting a lot of enrollment into intermediate building, you're probably gonna need another, or just look at that. We'll have to look at all that.
We
Again,
need to lay
I'd
out.
like to have hard numbers. I'd like to have hard numbers on the forecast. I'd like to have hard numbers of citing the preschool accreditation and what the needs are around that.
The other thing, sorry, Kelly, to
No,
interrupt.
no,
The other
please.
thing to consider too is just because there's only 10 kindergarten classrooms, that's not all that comes with that. We have related services that need spaces, we have title reading that needs spaces. When you add all of those grade levels, we have, I know Scott and I, we counted 5 or 6 title reading teachers in the district. They're spread between the 3 buildings. If they all go into one building or 2 buildings, those are additional classrooms that we need. So it's not just the 10 kindergartners and 10 kindergarten classrooms and 4 preschool classrooms. There's other spaces needed as well. So it's not just the hard numbers of 10 and 4. There's more there too. So can it fit? Yes, I think so. I've got a couple of different options. I've been looking at the buildings. I've walked every building with every open classroom. I've looked at who's in there. Is there one person in there? Is it related service? Is it what are we providing students in those classrooms? Can it fit in the 4 buildings? I think so. It's just a matter of what that looks like and how that all kind of, what we want. What do we want those buildings to look like?
So as we're getting close to the, so Sandy, I was going to give you an opportunity, sir. I know you had a comment you want to make. I'll give you the floor.
Yeah, just from an optic perspective, I mean, it just seems like if you're gonna, you're moving kids out of 7 Mile to one school, and then you're moving a virtual academy to another school, you're just switching. You're not saving anything. I mean, you gotta take all the staff and everything, you know, that goes with it, and you move it out there, so if you're gonna get to a point where you're passing a levy, you know, you're not gonna convince anybody you saved anything. I mean, it just looks.
So you're saying shut it down, tear it down?
No, I don't want to shut down.
Oh.
I mean, I really don't want to shut
I
down.
thought that's what he was
Right.
saying. Could he
That's
was
not what
saying
I'm saying, but you know, what I am saying is that if you take all the kids out of 7 Mile and put them in the other schools, and then you put a virtual academy over there, you haven't saved anything.
I would say
I think
there's more
schools should
students.
stay
If
there.
you shut it down, your numbers are gonna continue to drop.
Can I ask why your numbers have dropped so significantly? Because there's more children in 7 Mile than there was, I mean, my kids are older, and between that time, there's more children in 7 Mile. Was it because they went to homeschool when the 7 Mile, when it was redistricted? I know you don't wanna go back to that, but.
Well, I know when we were
Was
running
that
the
when
numbers,
things started going down?
when we were running the numbers for the levy, one of the things that was the reason why we went to an earned income, which a lot of people took that differently than what it was. There was a lot of lies and people were misleading people, but it was an earned income tax, and the reason why we went that route is I'm pretty sure it was something like 80% of the people who lived in the district don't have kids in the district that live in the district. So
The number was 69%. 69% of our district has no kids in the Edgewood City Schools.
Yep,
69% of the houses have 0 kids in this district.
a lot of them are retired, and
We also have a high rent population that comes and goes, mobility-wise.
Yes,
Well, and
that's true.
To answer your question, I think it's just like in our workforce. You look at the number of people who are now working from home and don't want to go back into the
So you're
building.
saying they're homeschooled?
if you look at this number, I know you guys can't see this. 2020 there was a spike, but then that's where we start just declining. And I think it's just like the workforce. People they don't want to leave their houses. So, and if you look at these numbers that Mr. Caesar provided in 2020, that home instruction, and I would venture to say probably like all those K-12 and all that, they probably have seen
They've seen an increase, yes, they have.
People don't want to leave their
And
houses.
Edgewood's not any different. Everybody in Butler
No.
County is saying the same thing. People across the state of Ohio, we have seen declining numbers and an increase in homeschooling since COVID.
I know
And
the
increase in mental
schools have a
health.
wait list now to get in, and because people are taking them out of the public school system, they want out because of whatever reasons. But, and I'm gonna go off topic, and to what he said, it does seem like you're switching one for another. However, what they said about the virtual academy is it's better, they learn better. I mean, if they're bullied and it's mental health issues, and they're coming to this school, and they're coming in the parking lot, I don't know if they have a separate interest or whatever, they may just meet their bully, which sends them into another mental tailspin, and it probably would be better for them to be separated from this building. Having said that, I still want to see K through 5 and 7 Mile, but I don't think the board has an appetite for that. It's kind of apparent. I just feel like for those kids with mental health issues, and I talked to Molly and Link, and she talks about how long her kids' school day is. It's stressful for Molly, it's stressful for her kids. They have a bus ride, it's 45 minutes, an hour. They get lost in this bus system. The bus doesn't show up, and then they're looking for their children. I went through that years ago with one of my daughters. And so that's not good for their mental health either. When they're being bused across the district for over an hour a day, and then they spend all day at school, and then they go home and they have homework, I mean, that's stressful. That's stressful. There's no, like Molly says, work, life, family life, play. It's mostly work to these little kids. And that's a long day. And talk about mental health, maybe that's why you're seeing more mental health in the higher grades. I mean, I don't know. I just go back to the community schools, and people are a community, and they nurture, just like Trenton nurtured their children, 7 Mile nurtures their children. And I think when you have that nourishment, it's so much better when they get in junior high and high school. I mean, my daughters went here, they graduated from here, they never talked about bullies. Like, they never saw anybody being bullied. They never experienced it.
When did they graduate?
2010, make me go back.
Well,
2010, 2013.
and research will tell you since 2011, in the use of Facebook and social media applications, the mental health has skyrocketed. So
They
we
had
do see a
MySpace.
different,
I mean, they did have
we do see a
MySpace.
different.
I remember, I think is that was called MySpace?
I have
Something
no
like that.
So the gentleman in the back said it appears that we're just moving kids around. And you know, Kelly, you asked probably the best question is, you're going to always do what's best for the kids. And I've listened to John, and I think I'm hearing it from you too, Scott, that a virtual academy in a separate location statistically shows that kids do better. It also, Doug, if I heard you correctly, you're saying that the high school typically would do better as well. So I think there's opportunities for doing what's best for the kids. I personally think, and to your point, I think a lot of the teachers in 7 Mile feel they are on an island, and I think bringing the teachers back to other teachers and having more teachers, and I think that would be, I think it would be generally good for the kids rather than just having 2 small grades separated on the other side of the district. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. There's no data to suggest that, but in a lot of the conversations I've had, that's the impression that I get. I do believe if we did this, we would save money. I don't know that we're going to save $600,000. Matter of fact, I'm sure we're not. We may only save $200,000, but I do believe that there would be costs associated with that. And I don't think anybody here tonight can predict what those costs look like. And that's what we're going to have to decide is, you know, if we want to take this any further. And before I kind of start coming back, and I'm going to ask the board one last time before you get close to adjournment, if there's any thoughts on, do we go forward with this? Do we table this? Actually Kelly said on the break that it would have to be a decision made very, very quickly if we wanted to do it for next school year because of the licenses and things like that. And I don't know that, I know kind of where I'm at. I don't know that the rest of the board is in the same place, but we would have to make a decision probably within the next 30 days on whether we wanted to do this or not to make it a reality for next year. But that takes us to another dilemma. If we truly are $600,000 in debt when you run that 5-year forecast and you present us that budget, I can tell you right now, $600,000, we're going to cut other things because I'm not voting for a budget that is predicting us to be in the red going into next school year. I think that would be totally irresponsible. So if we don't do something and we do come off in the red, then we're going to have to make other cuts. And we've already done the pay-to-play. We've already done the busing down to a 2-tiered system. We've cut a lot of things out of here. And you know, I know, Kelly, you want to hire some therapists. I know our teachers are in the bottom half in terms of salaries in Butler County. So if we're already $600,000 and we don't do this and don't save any money, we're going to have to figure out other things we're going to cut. So those are discussions that we're going to have to have. But before we ask the board if we want to go any further, Sandy, do you have any comments you'd like to make? Nothing. Anything from anybody in the audience?
I'd like.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. When you say you were decided that you're going to a community meeting tomorrow, and that you would want to send out like information and get questions asked with the community, who do you send? Do you send that to every household?
So several things. No, we do not send information to every household. We send information to all the families that are registered for Edgewood. We do not have that capability for households. We do put things on our website. So we started surveying last spring. We'll survey again. And last spring we did ask, you know, if we have to make reductions. We even mentioned closing a 7 Mile. Would it be fine arts, electives? And I was surprised 7 Mile ranked very low in saving the building, which surprised me.
So
but again, that didn't go out to the entire community. It went out to the families and the staff.
Any family that's in the school district?
Yes.
That has kids registered.
Correct. And I think we had a 30%, don't quote me on this, I have to go back and look, maybe a 25 to 30% participation rate. So you have to consider that as well.
And then one other question. I know you don't want to hear about the redistricting, but has somebody went through and figured out what those costs would be to?
No, that's what I said. We need to understand.
I mean, they want to figure out what it's going to cost to move the virtual academy over there. Have you compared it to if you went back to what it was, where it's K through 5? What is that cost to move all that back.
No,
And
I've
if
never
it
been
is-
directed to do that from the board, but I have suggested tonight, my recommendation is let's understand the why and understand the budget, and then we can make the best decision. And I'm not so sure I understand the budget. Are we 600,000 in the hole next year? Are we $6? I don't know. We need that information. And then we need to understand the why. Why is it we're making moves? Is it for cost savings? Is it for what's best for kids? And when it's what's best for kids, just because it's best for alternative school, which I do believe it would be, I don't know if it's best for kindergarten. I don't know if it's best for preschool. You know, we need to dig deeper into that and understand those facts.
Well, she makes a really good point, because when redistricting happened, we were told, you know, there would be this amount of money associated with it. And I think that was not an accurate amount. I mean, we had to put new signs on all the buildings. We had to pay for the moving of all the teachers' rooms, and that was a big undertaking. I think it was like 40 truckloads, 40 rentals, you know, whatever. So, like, if we're gonna go forward on this, and I know Mark hasn't asked that question yet, like, I think we need real numbers on that. What's it gonna cost to move the playground again? What's, you know, do we need another, and this,
Do we even
this
need to?
one,
Yeah.
this one configuration has one preschool class at the primary school and 4 preschool classes at intermediate. They have to have a different, you know.
The one at the primary school is Head Start.
Oh, okay. Well, that
That's
doesn't
why.
say that, so.
That's there right
But like,
now.
I think we need to know that. I also, like, you know, Molly has said multiple times her kids are on the bus for hours. I would like Shane, if he can, I don't know if there's a button he can push someplace. I wanna know how long their kids on buses. Because we've heard that over and over and over, and he says they're not he. Shane's over there.
Shane, I've never heard bus routes that long, but I've heard it from the community. But
Yes, Shane has said they are absolutely not on that long. We have community members saying they absolutely are. I don't know how those two things can be the same. So I think if he
Well,
can
we have
run.
GPSs installed, it's gonna be real easy, we can pull that
Okay.
data every day if we want to, but.
So I would like-
I'm sure they have increased this year with going
Well,
to
and the
2-2.
thing is, I talked to Shane early in the year, and he gave us the time of pickup
Right,
and drop off.
I'm aware of that.
Drop off was every bit of 20 minutes behind schedule for 3 months. Finally, in the past week, the bus is close to being on what the schedule was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And it's a surprise, you know, hey, they're here already. Because as a grandparent with no kids in the district, I'm in charge of getting these little ones off the bus.
Sure.
And watching them. So just because I live in a house with no children with me, I'm still involved with the elementary children, and I see them every day and how all of this affects them. If you want happy kids in the high school, you need to have happy kids and happy families. It's just not the children. That whole family has to work together and be happy with what's in that elementary building and learn the love of learning there and continue that on to intermediate, middle school, high school. Because if they feel left out and isolated when they're little, they're never going to get that back. The minute a kid feels I'm different, I don't belong, I'm not considered in this adult world, they're not gonna want to be a part of it. So you have to figure out how to make the family and the children work together in the elementary to make it to the high school. We might not need the virtual academy if we have happy kids that want to be in school.
Wish all families were like what you just described. That would be a blessing, but you're right.
The one thing I'll say about the buses, Amy, is that, you know, I live out north of you, and I'm literally less than a half a mile away from where it changes into, I guess that's Preble Shawnee out there, and Talawanda. My daughter gets on the bus at 20 after 6, and she gets to school at about 5 till 7, so she's on the bus 35 minutes each way. So, significant bus ride, but I'm pretty far out too.
Well, when you live in the country, I think you expect a little bit longer than if you lived, you know, in the neighborhood. But we just keep hearing that over and over, and I think we need that information.
As soon as we get the GPSs, the proof will be the pudding real quick. It'll come up instantly. But we're hearing differently from Director of Transportation than we are families. So
Well, and that goes back to also, I mean, like, as far as we're constantly hiring bus drivers, there's a turnover on bus drivers, so.
They
that
get paid
adds-
more money elsewhere.
Yeah, they make more money elsewhere. We're not paying our staff because we can't afford to pay our staff. So what's happening is every day you have someone different driving different buses.
That's true.
We have less buses on the road because we can't afford it. So we're packing more kids on a bus because financially that's what we gotta do. So that's
All those
increasing the
variables
amount of
play
time
out,
that they're
that's
on
right.
so it all comes back to the whole money aspect. And I know
That
last,
also goes back to the redistricting, because in 7 miles, kids could walk to school. They didn't have to be bused.
And a lot of parents dropped off. They didn't.
And a lot of parents, when they had open enrollment for kids there, they drove them to
So
school.
there was no busing at 7 Mile?
No, there was
I mean,
busing,
there's
but
busing, but-
kids, I mean, people who lived out and going to work or whatever, they would take their kids to school versus putting them on a bus.
To go all the way across town.
I mean, I took my kids to school.
well, and I know like last meeting Mark brought up, in our class, talking about bringing back an art class and any savings, regardless if it seems like significant savings, is big savings, because especially with the cuts that we've made the last couple of years, we're pinching pennies. We're constantly looking for ways to save money because we don't have the funds. And the difference between, 200,000 may not seem like a lot of money, but that's, a couple of teachers and a couple of classes, a couple of electives.
And I'd like to just go on record, we are reducing 2 more administrators on top of what we have already, done a reduction of, just because we are constantly looking for ways we can save. And that will be on the March board meeting for action.
So, and to your point, we've cut about, since I've been on the board, we've cut almost $2 million out of our operating budget, which I believe that's right around 8 to 9%. So significant cuts up to this point. And it wasn't that long ago where all of us were spending sleepless nights because we were coming into a board meeting and we thought we were going to have to cut busing. We didn't know if we were going to have sports, and actually it wasn't that, it was the end of May. We didn't know if we were going to have 7 Mile this year or not, and it was a pretty stressful time. So I brought this up because I wanted to have some conversation around it to see if we could come up with some sort of a strategic plan to take this district, into the future. And when I say future, I'm not talking the next 3 to 4 years. I'm talking way out there. And I think it is important that we keep 7 Mile open. And it may not save us any money, but I think that if we really want to do what's in the best interest of kids, we did make some pretty good cases tonight that this might work. And I think we did establish that we've got more rooms open on Booze and Bark than we're using in 7 Mile. So, I mean, it's been some pretty interesting data that's come out of all this tonight. So, we haven't established whether this is in the best interest of kids, if this is a cost savings thing, or if it's the best use of our resources, or a combination of all those. But in my opinion, if we want to go forward with this, we need to kind of talk about it tonight. What I don't want to do is ask Kelly and Patty and the staff to go off on a science project, and then the board's not interested in doing this. So I guess if we want to do this, according to what Kelly's telling me, if we think that we want to do it for next year, we need to make a decision probably by the March board meeting at the absolute latest. If there's not an appetite to do this and we want to table it till the following year, that's something that we can talk about now too. But I think what we need to come out of this meeting with tonight is there an appetite for going forward with having Kelly and Patty look at this, or do we want to table this for next year?
I'll make a motion to table this time. Patty's already told us we don't need to make a decision on impulse right now.
So we got a motion to table. Is there a second?
Table till then.
I don't think we can vote on that. So
Can't take action.
well, we can decide whether we want to continue to talk about it.
Well, this does, in this outline that we were given a couple months ago, I know they don't have it, but it says fall 2025 is earliest or failure of implementation. I mean, I think that, I don't know that it's a conversation we need to stop, but I think if you're wanting us to make a decision to have this start next year, there's a whole lot of information that we need. We come back on Monday for our board meeting. I don't know that we're going to have all that information. And then to be prepared to vote on it for next year at our March meeting, I think is really rushing things. And,
So
let's be honest, we've made knee-jerk reactions on this board before, And I think we need to be very. You're right. You made all very well informed decisions. But I think I had a list of stuff. I didn't get through it, but there's a lot of information that I would like to see numbers on and information. I don't know that it is to table it, but maybe let's not rush and do it the right way.
Well, if you want to do it for next year, we need to do it now. We need to make a decision by March. If you're not ready to do that, then we need to take.
I agree with both of you, but I need more information to be able to make a decision. But I mean, depending on that information we get, if you guys can get that to us, I mean,
I would like for them to come back with a recommendation to what this even looks like. I mean, we don't even know what this looks like.
Well, the question is, do we want to continue to have this conversation, or do we want to wait?
I think we'll have these conversations until we have an influx of money that we can't spend, and that's never going to happen. So, I mean, these will always be, maybe not as direct as this tonight was, but this will always be in the back of our minds, and this will always be a conversation as long as I'm on the board.
So what's your thoughts, Michael? You want to push it off, or you want to continue to have this conversation?
I think that we need to push it off and I think we just need more information. And so I'd like to push it off.
And that's where you're at, Amy?
Well, I don't want to just keep kicking it down the road, and never make a decision. But I think by March is way rushing it. So we can get this information. Let's get all of the information. And we can talk about it if we need to have another work session and go through it. Because we've not even talked about what the elementary kids, how this would affect them. I mean, we have, this outline, but I think this is probably
another work session if we need to.
brainstorm.
We could have another work session before the March meeting. How much time do you guys?
I don't think we're going to be ready for that. I mean, I'd like to have information on what to get credentialed, what's needed, what are the costs. We aren't going to be ready for the March board meeting. That's going to take a while.
So
And I'd like to work with the community and have our survey information back. So personally, just listening to this, my recommendation would be let's continue to gather the data that we've heard tonight. We are not in a position to make any decision before March. And then let's continue with this. I mean, when are we going to understand when the 5-year forecast is landed? And we're going to have that again in May. Where are we then? I'd like to know the board's input based on the 5-year forecast. When do we think are we going to go back for a continual levy that's up in 2025? What's our thought on that? And then in the meantime, we'll have a real understanding of where kids could go exactly, rather than just guessing. Do we have to combine some special ed classes, and is that best for kids? What buildings are we talking about? Is this a total reconfiguration or just a few kids? So I think we need a lot more data. And I would feel better, if you're looking for a recommendation for me, I'm not ready in March with that.
So it really doesn't matter what you think, but just for the record, where's your thoughts?
I want all the information, so whenever that is, but I mean, I think we need to get on it. So if this is something we're gonna do, we need to get on it.
We can easily have that in May.
Okay.
But not March.
Yeah, and we'll kind of take it from there. And
so I think we're making a huge mistake. I think we need to push this and see, but obviously I'm one vote out of 5. I personally think we're going to run out of money, we're going to run out of time, and we're going to look back on this and say, man, I wish we'd have done something.
Why isn't May? Is May not enough time?
Well, May is when our 5-year forecasts will be filed. And like I said, we're in there moving things and we're trying to get grant monies. We're doing everything internally that we can. We have some more cuts and things in mind when that forecast gets filed. And I can tell you right now, I feel much favorable even than when we filed in November. When you look back, we're doing what we can on the inside. I'm not going to tell you that we're in the clear throughout the 5-year forecast, but we are favorable right now from even where we filed. So I think when we file in May, we'll have a better picture.
I know you don't like to say until it's all filed, but we're not even close to the 600,000 deficit today, are we?
No, not right now.
No, what I mean is like, why is May too late? Why is May too late? just because of the 5-year forecast, we couldn't make any changes after that's
Well, we can
submitted?
start tomorrow gathering what it's gonna take for
He needs why if we make a
certification.
decision in May, could it not be implemented in the fall? Is that
Yeah,
what you're
that's
asking?
what I'm-
Because
There's not enough
licensure in
time.
preschool is gonna take about 4 to 6 months. And you gotta work with your families, if you're gonna have staff move, that's lengthy, plan. You know, what days you give them to pack up, unpack, where are they going? That takes work, that's not something you just throw out there.
That's why I say, if we're wanna try to do this for the fall, we need to be talking, we need to be pushing it right now. And like I said, even if we aren't in a bind for next year, we know it's gonna catch up with us eventually. And you made the comment, we need to go forward like we're not gonna pass a levy, so, but, you know, unless anybody else has got anything else, I mean, you know, it's 8:30, and we've had a lot of good discussion in here. I mean, all the information's out there. I think we're missing an opportunity to do something strategic for the district. It's in the best interest of us long term, but
Can we push it on to next meeting? We'll see where we're at. I mean,
next meeting's in
Monday.
We could let you know in March what information we have.
Yeah, what information we have in March,
Absolutely.
and then if we decide that night that, hey, this is the direction we wanna move forward, we'll move forward with it, and if not, then we table it until next year or something.
Will we have an idea of the 5-year forecast
I
in
mean-
March?
Every day we get closer to May, we have a better understanding of what it's gonna be, what we're gonna file in May. I just want you to keep in mind, Mr. Gabbard, you made a good point last week. If that boiler goes down, that's $500,000, 2.5 across the 5-year forecast. Any day, it's a snapshot of where we are today.
And I think what Mark's saying is why put ourselves in that situation if we can
Yes.
make this
I think we
decision
definitely
today.
bring it to the
I
table
get that,
on
but the
March,
problem
so
is, we're
let's look
working
at
with a
it.
lot of
What's the
moving
savings?
parts that we need more information
We don't
on.
even know what the savings would be by moving them. I mean, I know
Does it
we
even matter?
gotta, maybe it does, maybe it don't. I mean, I wanna do what's best for kids too. But I also gotta do it within a budget. So, is there any savings? Are we doing it to
I mean, I'd
to
imagine.
do what's
there'd be
best for
some
the
savings,
student?
just-
And he already said he wanted Mr. Caesar says he wanted another teacher. When there's another
and he said it was
85 with Benny's.
But he also said it was best for kids too, so.
Sure. I mean, that's where we gotta weigh this.
So, if there's no other discussion, then I guess we can, if, I'm not putting it on the agenda for Monday night, so if somebody wants to have this conversation on Monday night, please add it to the agenda under board member, issues and items, and we can talk about it, but I think we're all kind of tired of having this conversation tonight, and it sounds like there's not an interest to move forward, so.
I'll provide an update in March as to what I found out as far as licensure goes and better numbers on reconfiguration, just to give you an idea, if you
Okay.
want to pull the plug then, but we don't have that tonight.
I don't want to pull it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mrs. Amy Ashcraft, looking for a second.
Second.
Mr. Andrew Pressler. Mrs. Bowers, would you call roll, please?
Mrs. Ashcraft?
Yes.
Mr. Andrew Pressler?
Yes.
Mr. Messerschmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Michael Pressler?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0, it's 8:32.